So I want to start off by telling the story that got me started in all this. That basically I had just graduated. I moved to Spain, and I went to this dinner. There was an international exchange group, people from all around the world, and I was sitting beside this guy from Brazil, very interesting guy, and he gave me the most impressive multilingual show I'd ever seen in my life. Basically, another Brazilian came in. He turned to him. He said something like, "Ei, meu irmão, o que aconteceu ontem? Você sumiu. Ninguém merece." And he turned immediately straight over to this French girl who was chatting him up because he was a good-looking guy. And he's like, ouais, toi aussi, t'es très jolie, mais tu sais déjà que je suis pas célibataire, moi. And then he turned directly to the organizer, the Spaniard. And he's like, oye, tío, pero ¿dónde está la comida? Es que me muero de hambre. And then he turned back to me and he says with a very strong American accent, actually, I can't do American accents, sorry. No, but I asked him, how do you do this? How are you speaking all these languages? Because I could only speak English. This was 8 years ago. No, I had grown up thinking, I just don't have, I just can't do it. It's not possible because I took German and Irish or Gaeilge in school. And I did very, very badly at them. So I kind of figured I don't have the language talent, the language gene, you know. I figured I knew everything about genetics, even though I didn't study it. But I figured I was sure, don't have the language gene. And I had plenty of other excuses or reasons that many people can relate to. You know, I didn't really have the time or the resources, and I was too old. I mean, even though I was 21, I figured, no, that's it. I'm too old because I'm past the age. It's like I heard somebody told me that 14 is this cutoff age that you can't learn language anymore. And I was sure of that. I figured, you know, you have to learn it as a child. That's it. And so these are reasons most people have. But I had an extra reason, was that I was sick when I was growing up, and I had to go to speech therapy. So I actually had trouble learning English, and I still kind of stumble and pronounce things incorrectly at times. But most of the things you're hearing me pronouncing incorrectly now is actually my Irish accent, so don't worry about that. So I was sure, I was 100% sure it's not possible. I asked this guy, how are you doing this? How are you speaking all these languages? And he just said, I don't know, I'm just trying to speak them. I'm just, going up to the person and using the language. And I said, no, it can't be that simple. And I challenged myself. I thought, I'm going to do this. I want to learn Spanish, you know, because I just moved to Spain, and I decided, instead of just having a quick internship where I just speak in English, because I'd just graduated as an electronic engineer, so I was all like, you know, right, left brain. I was good at mathematics, bad at the languages. But I figured, no, I can figure this out. I can find a way to learn this language. So I dived into everything I could think of. I went to a course that was very expensive. There was just 3 or 4 other people in the classroom. Went to that for several weeks. Didn't work. I started studying a lot of books. Didn't work. I got some CD courses, some software. It didn't work. I tried to read a book. My first choice was not particularly clever, I think. It was El Señor de los Anillos, The Lord of the Rings. And I thought, I'll read this in Spanish. I had my dictionary, which I would consult every second word, basically. I made it to 2 pages, and then I thought, okay, I'm not going to keep this up. So after 6 months living in Spain, I couldn't speak Spanish. So if anything, this just convinced me even more that I don't have this magic language gene that people are just born with. And then I had an epiphany, and this is what I want to share with people. This is what I'm trying to convince the world. It's not actually about language talent. I really feel language talent is irrelevant. Some people might do it a bit better, but that doesn't matter for you. So what I did was I started to speak Spanish. Now, I don't know if that makes sense right now, but hopefully it will. That the problem was, for 6 whole months, I had been studying Spanish. I've been studying it so much that it was making it harder for myself. I kept seeing all these subjunctives and definite articles and things that were just confusing me. And after all the studying, I was nowhere further. I didn't really know any words. 6 months, I was still at the stage of just saying, hola, gracias, por favor, adios, just running off like that. But I just decided I'm going to start speaking the language. I'm going to get all of these excuses and ignore them. I'm not ready, and it's, I need to work more, or I'm not intelligent enough to learn a language. And I just started speaking it. And everything changed. Very, very soon after that, I was gaining momentum. A couple of weeks later, I realized I'm actually doing everything in Spanish. I'm living my life through this language. And eventually I reached the stage where my level was pretty good. Now, the thing is, you will find people who kind of would retort that, saying how it's not so possible for them. They always have many reasons why they can't just start speaking. So hopefully I can go through a list of the most famous ones and see if I can convince you that it's not quite, I really feel anybody can learn a language. So one thing people might say is that they just don't have the words. You start learning a language, you got no words. How can you have a conversation with somebody? But actually, if you're learning a Latin language like Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, what people don't realize is they've got maybe tens of thousands of words before they even start. Because I think like in 1066, the French Normans got into England, and they hung around for a few centuries. So you had like two layers of society. You had the poor peasants who would speak the old Germanic English, and you had the rich noblemen who would speak something closer to French. And eventually these things merged. So in English, we've got a lot of French vocabulary, which actually happens to be very similar or the same in Spanish and Italian and French and Portuguese and so on. And so if you learn some of these words, you get a head start. And you can figure out, without having to learn the language, how you might say these things. So if you remember the different strata, the different levels of formality, let's say I wanted to say the word country in like Spanish, and I forget what it is. I forget how. No, I don't even know. I've never come across the word. Well, how about I try to rephrase that in English? If I go back to English, instead of country, what's another way to say country? I could say nation. It means almost the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing. It's close enough. So nation is just nación, or nation, or whatever it might be in the corresponding language. Or you might think, well, if somebody's knocking on the door, you can say, come in, and that's fine. Or you could also say, enter. And enter is from the old kind of French version. You got entrar, entrer, and so on. So you've already got some words, but let's say you're going to something far away, an Asian language, Middle Eastern language. It's not possible nowadays to start a language from zero, from scratch. It's not possible, because you always have something. Human beings are interacting all the time. You have maybe brand names, or you've got technology that uses the same words. So you can imagine it would be very hard to find a language where at least one or all of like Coca-Cola, internet, Obama, where these words would not be pretty much the same. And that's this is pretty universal. If you can think of this, and kind of maybe I've used brand names to explain myself and get a point across initially with people. And then when you got this vocabulary, you can really start getting into, learning the words that obviously have nothing to do with what you've come across before. So you can try some memory techniques. I mean, I've got very bad memory. I really feel that I've got like censorship in my brain whenever somebody tells me their name. It's like, nice to meet you. I'm like, I forget it immediately. So I don't have a good memory. But despite that, I would learn words quickly because I try to make it more fun. I think to myself, like when I was learning Spanish, I took the word for beach, and I saw it's playa. I thought, okay, well, playa kind of looks a bit like the English word player. So I thought, well, I'll imagine this. When I think of a player, I think of this kind of like a cheesy pickup artist. And imagine this like, super overconfident guy walking down a beach in Spain and trying to pick up girls and getting a slap in the face. You know, a very visual image. And from then I remembered, well, if I see the word playa, that sounds like player, then the guy was on the beach. And it works the reverse as well. You think of beach, you associate the player, and then you go backwards. So you can learn words very quickly if you learn them with an association. It doesn't matter how bad your memory is. And you can learn phrases. I like to maybe introduce a bit of music, because I think it's a good place to start with languages when you get some basic phrases of, like, you know, where's the bathroom and so on, things like this. So what I would do if I was learning, like, in Italian, I took where's the bathroom, dove si trova il gabinetto, and I thought, I don't know, I'll take the Big Ben chime. And I sang to myself a couple of times, dove si trova il gabinetto, and I kept doing that, and after a couple of times, it stuck. And this is despite the bad memory I have. So words are not a problem. You can learn a language if you have no words in it yet, and you have to accept that actually you do have a lot of words. Thousands, if not tens of thousands. A next problem people always tell me is grammar. Now, when you learn a language in school, which many of us do, most of it is grammar. I had learned German in school, and for me, German was just der, die, das tables of complicated, structures, and it just totally intimidated me. And this is not a language. This is not a language. This is a list of rules that is as good as mathematics or something like that. It doesn't work. And the thing about language is a means of communication. When you try to put it in a box of grammar, then you're not allowing yourself the freedom to communicate freely. Now, I actually like grammar. I'm not anti-grammar. I'm not going to say to burn all the grammar books or whatever. But what I found is a lot more effective is if you embrace speaking and speaking wrongly. And I encourage people to speak with as many mistakes as possible. I aim to make at least 100 mistakes a day if I'm learning a language. Then I know I'm getting somewhere because I'm using it with people. And I know my grammar's bad at first, but something very interesting happens, because I hated grammar in school. I took grammar in English, grammar in Irish Gaeilge, and grammar in German. I hated it. It was so boring. But now I love grammar. Because what happens is I put it aside. I don't leave it away forever. I put it aside. I embrace the language. I start learning some phrases. I start meeting some people, and I start using it. And then, after a couple of months of that, when I feel the language is a part of me, where I can communicate and use it with human beings, I go back to grammar, and it's actually very interesting. It's like, it's like an explanation of the story. And it's like, that's why they say it that way. It's really cool. So grammar is it can be very nice if you treat it like that. Another one is money. People say, I don't have the money. I got to go to buy this expensive software. I have to go to this course I heard about. I actually find all of these, what they have in common is more like the placebo effect, that you've spent so much money that perhaps you're going to put in more work because of that. I think the components of so many courses, they kind of, unless it's an immersion course, they miss out a lot on what they really need to discuss. But anyway, people get what they want. A few people do get success out of these courses because they spend so much money. They hold themselves kind of liable for that. And something I find is a lot more effective is if you're just public about it. And I think the reason I did learn Spanish that first time is because I told everybody. I didn't just promise myself. I didn't make a New Year's resolution, speak Spanish someday. There's 7 days in a week, and someday is not one of them. You need to start now. So I started, and I told everybody. I told all my friends, my family, everybody, because I was liable. I felt responsible. I had to deliver, otherwise I'd feel embarrassed. And that's way more powerful than I've spent the money, so I feel I have to use it. So money isn't the issue. You can do all of this for free. You can meet people for free without having to travel to a foreign country. There's such good connections now. A lot of social networking sites let you search per language, or if there's nobody in your town, you can actually talk to them over Skype. So you can learn any language this way. And another thing I think is I think the biggest thing for people is that they feel they're going to frustrate the person they're speaking to. I think that's the biggest problem I hear. You're going to talk to this person, they're going to get angry. You know, you're butchering my language, how dare you? It doesn't work like that. I kind of feel this is ironic when I hear people tell me this, that, you know, they're going to annoy the person they're speaking to. Well, actually, most people I've talked to who kind of consider learning a language, I see a lot of frustration in their eyes just from the fact that they don't speak it yet. I've actually met people here who are in San Antonio, and they are surrounded by Spanish speakers, and they can never communicate with them, and they feel so frustrated by this. And this is a lifelong amount of frustration that I feel is so much bigger than any kind of, you know, talking to somebody that they might kind of roll their eyes or whatever. But that doesn't happen. It's actually among non-English speakers, I find all around the world, when you try to speak the language with them, they're so overjoyed. They're like, wow, he's trying to learn my language. He's not expecting everyone in the world to speak English. So you get encouragement. People keep telling you, you're doing a great job. Even though you're aware your grammar's bad, you're using the same 10 words over and over again for the first few days, you know, but that's fine because you're starting to communicate with people. And I think this is the thing that's missing, is this idea of communication. A language is not this kind of thing that you test for and that you can either be right or wrong. It's not a black or white thing. It's how human beings talk to one another. And there's no wrong way of doing that. If your words are a little strange or you forget to conjugate your verbs or whatever, people will always understand you. I mean, I'm sure you've heard people speaking English to you that was a little broken. You always understand it. So I think the problem people have with the frustration is they feel that, you know, the whole world will end if they try to speak the language. If they go up to this person and try to speak it, the world will end. I actually think the opposite. I think a whole new world will begin if you try and speak a new language with people. So I really hope that you'll give it a try. Thank you very much.